Welcome to another episode on the Purpose Filled Life podcast. I am your guest host, Ashley Stratton, and today we are so excited because we have the famous Carraway with us. And she, if you don't know who she is an award-winning international speaker. She is a best-selling author, and she's most known for her books, Wildly Optimistic, More Than the Tattooed Mormon, and Cheers to Eternity. And her passion is to tell everyone that happiness exists and that it comes from the gospel of Jesus Christ. One reason that I love listening to Al and why I invited her on this show is because of her connection to the gospel of Jesus Christ and how passionately she shares it and her wonderful message that she shares with audiences all over the world concerning the gospel of Jesus Christ. She's a really unique figure in the Latter-day Saint community. So I'm so excited to have her on the show. And she's also a mother. And she's doing everything she does while being a mother. And that's also key to what I wanted to talk about today. So, Al, my first question for you is, I'm really curious to know, you are a convert to the Church of Jesus Christ. And I am wondering, how did you go from your conversion to the gospel and then to writing books and speaking? What happened in between there that led you down that path?
Everything happened. So I am from New York, and I don't know if it's just me, although I don't think it is. I am the typical New Yorker. We're a little bit stubborn. Yes. And so anyways, met the missionaries age. I was just about to turn 21, already graduated college. I lived on my own. I was on top of the world, living my stubborn life where I don't need help from anyone or anything. I wasn't looking for anything. I did not have this hole or void to fill. I felt amazing doing things on my own the way that I wanted them to. I met the missionaries and I wanted to prove them wrong. Like, hey, you really can live however you want. You can create this life that you want and be happy with it without any of this like supposed God. So I lived how they were teaching me just to prove them wrong. I tried to live it long enough to allow contrast to happen, to prove them wrong. And then I found out that even the worst God has ever seen kind of effort, any bit of effort, we receive. So I was sure I was doing the worst God has ever seen kind of effort, but I was receiving and things were being magnified. And so I got baptized, and then my life fell apart. But that's not the story we're telling today. But I realized with losing everyone and everything and moving across the country and being ripped away from anything I've ever known or loved, that this ignorance that I had around members of the church was debunked the second I moved to the West. The ignorance of me thinking, I don't know, it just didn't occur to me that people could ever struggle with the gospel, like with everything that we've been given, that I went my whole life living without. So when I moved across the country and I realized, oh, people are still struggling, and wait, I'm struggling even more. It wasn't until then that I had a reoccurring idea, just to write about it. Like, hey, if you're feeling this way, and wait, other people are feeling this way too, like why wouldn't I talk about it? And so that is how I started writing. It was just a reoccurring thought. So it was never a hobby of mine growing up. It was something that I grew into and blossomed in. And public speaking, I've been doing that for 12 years now. And I've gone to 7 different countries speaking. And that wasn't I didn't seek that out, but it was just telling God that this is what I want to do. And he packaged it differently and it blossomed into public speaking. And now we're 12 years strong with that. So none of it was something that I did before, but I blossomed into it from reoccurring ideas. And now it is almost my entirety of who I am and what makes me feel filled.
Wow, that's incredible. So you did say that your life kind of fell apart after you joined the church, right? You didn't want to dive into that, But would you be willing to be a little bit open book there for a second and talk about the struggle afterwards and how it kind of did fall apart and how it sounds like to me that it did lead to what you wrote about and what you now speak about are some of those challenges that you experienced. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was because I got baptized. It was because I found and followed God that I lost every single one of my friends. They
Wow.
wanted nothing to do with me and what I was a part of. My dad, he looked me in the eye. I don't want you as a daughter anymore because of what I'm a part of. I wanted to serve a mission, and my answer was to move across the country. So I left New York, drove all the way across the country to a place I'd never been, where I didn't know anyone, and I was treated so terribly. I'm like Joseph in the Old Testament. My life was going from bad to worse to even worse. And, man, the way that I was treated was huge. And I was just barely baptized, and I'm still trying to figure out everything. Like, do I even know if I'm praying right? I don't know. Is this really what the Spirit sounds like? Am I following it? Am I doing it right? I don't know. If I am, why would things be getting worse? I don't know. So it was all super new. It was a complete reconstruction of my life. And it wasn't just that what I did had to be different, but my way of thoughts, like my whole brain had to be rewired of 21 years of habits and traditions and, just like deep within my roots. And then to move somewhere new and to be almost like rejected in all ways there. People took me personal. They would look at me and they would be offended, assuming that I hate the God that they love. And then they would treat me like they were in defense, even though they didn't know me, even though I didn't say anything. And so everything about me said that I should fail before I even started. Everything that I look like, everything that I came from, the way that everyone was receiving me in my own community that I wanted to help in, all of it was saying, you should not and you cannot. I was either too much or too little of something. And this is just within the few months of baptism. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. I have gone through things 100 times harder than even that. But that is just sort of foreshadowing that life with God is full of sacrifice and unwanted and unexpected. And I got to a point where I'm like, wait, I don't like this. Wait, I am not happy. I don't like feeling uncomfortable in my own life. And I, being stubborn, refuse to live like this any longer. And so that is when I started to do something about it. We are allowed to feel upset and mad and angry and confused and alone, but it's up to us whether or not we choose to live there. And I'm too stubborn and I love myself too much to not live a good life. And so part of climbing out of this that I still use now because my just everything is hard for me all the time. I'm always called to do something extremely hard. My anchor has been what I've learned, which is, what does my next step look like, even if it's small? What makes me feel filled? Am I doing it? I think everything, even spiritually, everything revolves around self-love. I think learning to love yourself is the anchor to dealing with any hardship or confusion in life.
Right. I totally agree. And you've recently come out with a scripture study journal called Rooted. Do you have some of those tips and principles in the journal? You do write of how to do self-love and how to set those little next step goals that you've talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have some of those principles in the journal. Can you talk about those a little bit, those principles that you share?
Yes, because my life is so severely hard. And because I so frequently wonder, where is he in this? And because I wonder, wait, if I believe in a God who is real and he is mine, then what does it mean in the times that I don't see him, feel him, hear him? If I believe that God is good and he is mine, then how can I apply that when everything is falling apart? And so everything that I write, the books that I have, and even a scripture study journal, it revolves around how can I better see him, feel him, hear him when I don't. And so it's really just a shift of perspective. That rooted specifically is a whole scripture prompt journal, a read anywhere, read wherever you want in the scriptures, but they are 4 pages of prompts per whenever you want to read, to look at things differently, to shift our perspective, to find your God who is always there when we wouldn't otherwise see him or recognize him in those ways. So it's all about seeing yourself in the scriptures and being able to create more opportunities to hear him because he is always speaking. Are we listening? Well, probably not. I don't.
Right.
But
yes. One thing I noticed you kept saying that I loved is you said, God is good and he is mine and he is your God. I think sometimes we can separate that and think, oh, he's like a God over everybody, but he really has this personal, unique relationship with each one of us. And I think that's something that I even miss out on, where I'm thinking, oh, it's just like the broad span that he's watching over all of us, but there's this unique relationship that each one of us has with God. And I love that you talk about that too. Right now in your Instagram, you talk about looking for yourself in the scriptures, right? And I think that is so, so key. And I love that you have that in your journal and that's a piece of it.
It's a whole thing, because it's fine. It's fine that we have these stories that we know from the scriptures, but if you can't see yourself in it, they're irrelevant. Everything is irrelevant. If you don't see yourself in it and in him, it's irrelevant. So I'm going to help you find yourself is what that is.
I love it. I love that you make it so personal. Because that's what it should be. Our connection to God should be personal. Our connection should be personal. Yep. So that it can help us so that we can be the best version of ourselves, right? I love that. I love that. So I want to just shift gears a tiny bit and talk about our life balance a little bit. Because even as you're talking, you do so much. Holy moly. If anybody has ever given a speech ever, they know how much work and time goes into it. Or if they've ever written a book, it takes so much time and effort. And to be a mother and a good wife and a good minister and church member, it all takes so much time, right? So I want to talk about, how do you go about keeping your faith strong and your family's faith strong? Because that's the most important thing to me, at least, and to a lot of our listeners, is our faith in God and keeping that strong while doing everything you do. How do you keep that strong? Like, what spiritual habits do you have to keep you to keep the grease slick and keep everything moving along while you're doing everything you do?
Ashley, let me ask you this. Is your husband so excited you're doing this podcast?
Oh, I hope so. He's a huge supporter. So he's a great supporter. So I'm sure he's excited. He hasn't expressed much excitement about it, but he's always excited to support.
And I think that is, if your spouse is not on board, it will always be a struggle and a weight. Mm-hmm. Ben, we were engaged. He bought the ring, but he had not proposed yet, but he had it. And we went to General Conference, and it took us 2.5 hours to get to our car because everyone wanted to talk to me and take their picture. And Ben literally physically got pushed way far away from me. And that was the first time that we had ever fought, because he realized, I don't know that I want my life to be like this. I don't know that I want to share her in that way. That's a big weight. And then that's when he did some serious inward thinking of, is this for me too? Is what she wants for me too? And as soon as he realized, yeah, I love that about her. Absolutely. I want her to, like, how cool is it that she does those things? As soon as he made that switch, I have spoke. Oh my gosh, sometimes I'd be gone for a few weeks speaking, and we had 2 littles, newborns. Right. And not once have we ever fought about it. Not once.
Wow.
Did we ever fight about me speaking or doing interviews or, doing who knows what? Not once. And it was because he made it this commitment to himself to be on board. So step number one, you got to get your spouse to be on board, because
absolutely. Wow.
yikes, like I'm too stubborn to not.
Okay,
but
here's the question though, I have to ask. So I feel extremely lucky like you to have a supportive spouse, and whatever I do, we've never had a fight over speaking or interview, whatever, podcasting. There are listeners out there that I know that are listening who do. Yeah, their husbands are not supportive, and they get in fights about when they say, yeah, I want to go do this. I want to leave I might have to leave the house to go do this. I need you to watch the kids while you do this. And it's a very stressful environment. What would you say to them? That might be a hard question. Like how would you go about solving that?
I hope you are comfortable with hard conversations with your husband, because you are only here once. You are alive here once. And if you are not listening to your reoccurring thoughts, if you are not doing the things that make us feel filled, we're doing it wrong. Have hard conversations. And if things need to change because someone is not willing, then I believe that is something worth fighting for. I believe, you should be stubborn with your life. You should be stubborn with your time. And what if you're not there yet? Well, then that's when I think everything comes back to really keening in on your self-love. If you do not think that you are worth fighting for yourself, then we really need to dial back down to your self-love, to know and work towards that you are worth your time. You are worth feeling happy. You are worth feeling loved by you too. And I think that is probably one of the most asked questions. No, maybe not. That could be exaggerated, but how do I have time to do these things? I have 3 kids. I have a husband, and I'm doing lots of interesting ideas. But one, my husband's on board. Our family motto is, if something comes back to us more than once, we're going to do it. And we usually bring our family along with us. But, I tell them that I love my kids. I love my kids. Every parent knows this deep love and drive that comes from, your kids. But I also love me too. And I think that it would be such a huge disservice to not teach them by showing them that it is deeply needed to pursue, crucial, to pursue what makes you feel filled, to show them that they matter, to what is important to them matters, that their passions matter. And you teach them that by showing them that you are not secondary in your own life. No way. There's no way. You are not secondary in your own life, and you deserve your time too. And to teach them first rather than repair later, that their own happiness for their very own life, that they're only living once, should not come with guilt.
Yeah.
I was asked, what do I wish everyone would do before they graduated high school? And it was, learn to love yourself, because that's what makes all of those other things easier. You can defend yourself. You can stand up for yourself. You can be stubborn with your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think too, a big thing you hit there too, is when you love yourself, you're willing to stand up for yourself. And I think that when it comes to marriages and not having a supportive spouse, and when you just let them run you over and not pursue your dreams, are you really loving yourself? Are you really standing up for yourself when you do that? You
should.
Yeah.
You should do that.
I think that's a really interesting point to bring up, is the self-love in a marriage and in a relationship, and how that can apply to you living your best life and to accomplishing and doing the things that you love and the things that God has called you to share and to do as well. I've never connected that piece of the puzzle, that it comes back to so much self-love and self-respect for yourself, to stand up for yourself and say, hey, I do want to do these things. I feel called to do this, and I have a voice to do it. I think that's a huge, huge piece. And then also you mentioned bringing your kids along. that piece as well. I've noticed that's a pattern in a lot of the women I interviewed, is that they bring their kids along. It's not always feasible to bring your kids along, but when it is, as much as it is, bring them along the journey, you know?
You know what's interesting? Someone mentioned this to me years ago. I don't even know who they are, but I will never forget this. And she messaged me saying, my parents never read scriptures growing up. And it bothered me. It bothered me because I felt like our whole lives revolved around what was in the scriptures, and they didn't even read it. And then well into her lifehood, married with kids, she finally like asked her mom about it. Mom, what the heck? Why aren't you doing those things that you're teaching us to do, that we're creating a whole life around? And the mom goes, what are you talking about? I woke up an hour early every single morning just so I could read scriptures, but she didn't see it. So she didn't think it was happening. And wow. So this idea of letting your kids see it, teaching by example, showing them that they matter, their passions matter, that they're worth their time and they're worth pursuing. That is where by showing them, involving them.
I agree. Just recently, I read my scriptures on my phone a lot, and I was reading them during the day the other day, and I just had this thought, you know what? I need to actually read my physical scriptures when I'm doing it in front of my children, because then they don't just think, oh, mom's on her phone again, like looking at her phone on the couch. I'm actually reading my scriptures, but they don't know that. Mm-hmm. They don't see that. And so I actually pulled out my physical scriptures, and then my kids came sit down. Oh, mom, you reading your scriptures? I'm like, yes, that's what I'm doing, you know, so that they could see and that they could know. I think that's a huge part of the puzzle. I love that. Yeah. Yep. So I have just a few more questions for you. One question that I'm asking every single mom that I interview on this podcast is, do you feel like you are able to put your faith and your family first and still go after your goals and your dreams?
My entire existence is my faith. God has changed me too much to not revolve around him. My passion is him. So it is very easy for me to keep them intertwined because it all is one. My passion is him. Everything I write about, everything I create, every time spent on an airplane away from my kids or time in a cold attic for a podcast, it is about him. And so that's, I don't know that I can properly chime in on that.
It seems like it's who you are. It's your whole being. You are living your dreams and your goals, and you're doing it with God and with your family. So it seems to be all one. It doesn't seem to be separate, different pieces. It is all one.
Yes. And you know, I have learned that God does not come to me in big ways. And so I like to put emphasis on those reoccurring thoughts. When we don't know what we need to be doing. What if we don't know what makes us feel filled? Well, what reoccurring thought are we not listening to? Or what if, like before, I wanted to serve a mission and my answer was to move across the country? And that may seem very irrelevant. And it took me years to figure out, wait, he is giving me exactly what I want, but it is packaged completely different. So if I'm telling God, wait, I really want to help people, but I want to feel filled in doing so. I thought that was a mission, but really it's speaking and it's writing and it's doing these things that it was foreign to me at first, but then it has become such a big part of me, my identity, that I don't even know. And I think life and God and your reoccurring ideas makes life in its entirety an endless self-discovery.
Yes. I'm glad
new seasons.
Yes. I'm glad you brought up the recurring thought idea, because Elder Cook talked about that in a recent General Conference talk, where he said that he mentioned Joseph Smith, and when he was talking about getting revelation in the Doctrine and Covenants about baptisms for the dead. And he talked about how, well, I've been having this thought about this, so I'm going to ask God about it. And Elder Cook said that a reoccurring thought can be a spiritual prompting. When a thought's coming to you over and over again, that can be a spiritual prompting. And I think we forget about that. We think it has to be like this this like light coming down from heaven and manifesting we feel peaceful, but it could just be like a recurring thought, like, hey, you need to go do this, you need to go share this message, you need to go speak about this or write this book, you know?
I think the most important thing I have ever learned is that all good is God. That means every thought that is good, every good feeling, that is you feeling and experiencing God. So in the times where we're like, where is he? He's not speaking to me. Then I can reel myself back and be like, wait, I laughed today. That is good. That could not happen if God did not exist. Even just laughing, that is good. That is God participating in my life. And so if we translate that to thoughts, ideas, passions, we can follow our good feelings. That is God participating and speaking in your life. We can follow and recognize him in good thoughts towards something. I don't know how to do this, but I feel good about it. Anything that is good, ideas, feelings, that is God, and that is God participating in your personal life. But it's also important to reverse that and be like, if it is not good, it is not of God. So if you are having these negative thoughts that I feel uncomfortable, this isn't right, or why bother, anything that is telling you or making you feel not good, why bother?
Yeah.
It's not worth it. Well, that is not good, which means it's not God, which means it's not truth. It is not reality. So as we move forward, navigating, if it's your own crazy idea, if it's the right thing, well, what are you feeling?
Right.
Is it something that we can cast the adversary out because we have that power? Or is it something that we need to have courage and pursue, especially if it's new? What if it's new and foreign to you, because that's a witness that it is not your idea, but someone else's. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. I love all of that. So my last question for you is, if there's a mom listening to this that does feel called to go after a goal or called to share something or pursue a dream of her own, what one piece of advice would you give to that mother?
Passion will override any lack of talent or resource you may think you don't have. That passion will continue to grow as you continue to say yes to your own life. Yeah. You better do it.
Yeah.
You better do it. Anything that is telling you to not do it, it is not good. It is not from God.
Yes, I love it. I love it. If it's good, it's from God, and go for it.
Yes. And don't let anyone, do not let anyone pick your life for you. Everyone sees their differences as a setback or a weakness, but we got it all backwards. It is everything that is different about you is what you need to grow in. It is everything that is different about me. Everything that tells me that I couldn't is exactly what makes me successful in what I'm doing. Grow in your differences. Lean in to your what you think is a weakness, and please stop letting other people choose your own life for you. You're only here once, and who are they?
Right. And you only get one. I love that you said that earlier. You only get this one chance, this one life, you know? So you better do it, especially if it's good. Yes. Oh my heck, Al, this has been amazing. This has been so good. You have so much passion. You have so much light to give, so much to share. Where can people find you, find your books, find your journals, and connect with you?
I'm everywhere. My name's Al Carraway. Al, like a dude. You pop me into Instagram. I got a website where I write frequently, and I have 3 books coming out this year. So look out for them.
So watch for those.
And they're gonna be great.
Will they be at Deseret Book? Will they be on your website? Where can they find those?
Amazon, Deseret Book, wherever. Yeah, awesome. I have a New Testament one, Finding Yourself in the New Testament, and it's amazing. I'm very excited for it.
I am so excited about that too. Thank you so much, and we'll watch for your new books for sure. Thank you for being with us today, Al.